Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'll be reacting to my second scary storyteller for y'all. And the one I picked out this time is Mr. Haunted. The video I'll be watching is 4 true creepy horror stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera back up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
When I was 23 years old, something happened to me and my husband that scarred us for life.
Okay.
Because of this, we keep all our doors and windows locked and also have a guard dog as well as alarm systems. It was a Tuesday night and I had just finished cleaning up after dinner. Jake, which is my husband, was on the couch relaxing while watching a movie. I was tired and had to get up early for work the next day, so I told him that I was going to bed.
Sounds like so far everything's just like a nice, quiet, casual part of life at night, basically. But let's just see where everything goes wrong at.
He then said that he'd be in bed soon and we both said our goodnights. I had already showered, so I just threw myself into bed and went to sleep. I'd say about 3 hours later, I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing. I woke up, annoyed and tired, and felt around for my phone on my night table. However, I heard my phone coming from Jake's night table, so I tried to tell Jake to hand me my phone. He didn't move, so I figured that he was way out by now, as he tends to stay up too late sometimes. Therefore, I had to reach behind Jake to get my phone from his night table.
Yeah, I know that would be a hassle. You're already fast asleep and then your phone starts ringing, but you never know if it's like an actual emergency or somebody spamming you or people prank calling you nowadays.
At this point, still in my groggy state, I was able to see a bit more clear. I picked up the phone and felt my heart drop into my stomach once I heard who was on the other end. The person who was on the other end was Jake. He went on to explain that he was going to take the dog for a walk and couldn't find the leash. I didn't move or say anything. I just simply turned my head to whoever was under the blanket on Jake's side of the bed. All of a sudden, someone jumped out of the bed and out the door. I began to scream frantically, yelling for Jake. I then heard Jake yell at someone from downstairs and then eventually come upstairs. At this point, I was breathing heavily and Jake then called the cops. We unfortunately had crappy security cameras throughout the house, so providing any sort of footage to the police was useless as it would be too dark and grainy. We still aren't sure as to how this person got into our house, but we now have all entrances locked and ended up moving away out of state a few months later.
I am so sorry that happened to you. That would be scary, thinking that someone is laying next to you, thinking that it's your husband, but it turned out your husband was out walking the dogs, but thank God he called because he didn't know that that guy walked into the house and was laying right next to her. And the other guy got scared and ran out. But I guarantee you, once he went out there to walk the dogs, he didn't decide to lock the door, so the guy had an easy interest of walking in and closing the door quietly behind him. But then was he there to rob the place or just to rest? I don't know. But that's creepy. I'm sorry that this made him have to also move out too. But hey, I don't blame him. I don't want to be in the neighborhood where creeps like that would just come out of nowhere and walk into your house and lay on your bed next to you. But I'm glad they're okay, so let's get to story number 2.
This happened to my sister and I in the winter of 2009 when we were both 10 years old.
Okay.
Throughout our lives, we've always been explorers of the unknown. What I mean by that is that we all liked exploring forests and caves whenever we'd go on a trip to remote areas. My parents trusted us kids, so we'd go looking around for hours in the woods without any adult supervision.
You see, I always like walking into the woods to explore a little bit, but I'm not going in no caves without anybody else. Because you never know if there's a venomous animal, like a snake or a spider or bats in caves like this, or you might trip and fall and hurt yourself. There's always danger when you walk into unexplored territory, let's put it that way.
Sometimes we'd find really cool little discoveries while exploring. We found old tools, a few little relics, a knife, and even an old ammo crate that we believe was from World War II.
Oh, wow.
They weren't worth anything, but it was still cool to find.
I'll say it's still cool to find. I don't care about the money value. If it was stuff from like World War II, I will hold on to that stuff because you never know. You might find a World War II collector that was looking for something like that you found.
Anyways, on with the story. It was winter break, and my family and I were going up to my grandma's house in Wisconsin. My grandma lived in the mountains, and her house was surrounded by forests in all directions. To better explain, the forest was pretty much her backyard that went on for miles. I don't know what it was about my grandma, but she liked being isolated for some apparent reason. The only explanation I would guess is that she didn't enjoy the busy cities. Anyway, we arrived at my grandma's house and ate a nice home-cooked meal she made for the family. After dinner, my sister and I sat by the fire drinking hot cocoa, excited about what we might find while exploring tomorrow. The next day came around and my parents let us kids go out and have our fun. However, my sister and I had this crazy plan to take our so-called exploring trips one step forward by going deeper into the woods. Like I said, the forest goes on for miles, so in our 10-year-old state, we figured that there was something else out there waiting to be found. We started walking along the trail, looking on the ground for things we thought had value. The closest thing we ended up finding was some rocks that looked kinda cold to us. However, I managed to notice a small little clearing in the woods, about 20 feet from where we were standing. The thing that made it more visible was that we noticed a small structure in the clearing. At first, we thought it was just some old water tanks or something, but as we got closer, we identified it as being an old, abandoned underground bunker, probably once used for military.
Oh, man. That would be a huge discovery indeed. I heard stories and I've seen it on like shows where they look at abandoned places and some of them end up being old bunkers. But make sure there ain't nothing hazardous down there because you definitely don't want to be stepping in any toxic waste that was still there from whatever experiments the military were using that bunker for. If my friends said they found a bunker, I'll be like, hey, I'm going with you. I want to check it out and take pictures.
I told her that we came here to explore and went on to explain as to how rare it was to find a bunker deep into the woods.
You got that right, it is
I
rare.
eventually convinced my sister to go, and she then complied. The further we went towards it, the more creepy the setting became. The wind was getting stronger while there was more heavy rain clouds above. We then started to notice graffiti sprayed on the concrete in multiple places. There were also some empty beer cans, plastic bags, and various other pieces of trash. That's when my sister and I found what was once the main doors of the bunker. Keep in mind that this wasn't one of those big bunkers with doors about 30 feet high. It was rather a more smaller bunker. Long story short, we opened the doors, creating a very loud creak. Inside was just an empty dark hallway, and the only sound we could hear was water dripping from somewhere deep into the bunker. Now, this was before iPhones had built-in flashlights, so we used all of the light our screens could give and used that to light the way. Looking back, it was pretty useless as our screens only illuminated what was about a foot in front of us. However, we did end up finding some old papers that had been typed. Just by reading some of them, we were almost certain that this bunker was used during the war. That's when we heard a very loud metal bang from down the hall, along with what sounded like footsteps. It was obvious that we were not the only ones here.
Oh, crap. I wouldn't be surprised if a homeless person found that place too and they're using it as their camp. And you're trespassing. At this point, you hear a big bang. Don't you dare yell out, hello? Because if this guy got hostile intentions, he'll definitely charge and attack you guys. You need to get out of there now.
I told my sister to run and we booked it back to the main doors
Thank you.
and out of the woods. We ran straight home and by now it was starting to rain, but we naturally didn't care. The only thing we cared about if there was something behind us. Within 5 minutes of running, we made it back to my grandma's house and there was thankfully nobody home as we would have gotten into major trouble. Ever since that day, we never told anyone else about the story, not even our parents. I still don't know who or what was with us in that bunker.
I still think it's probably like a homeless person, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a ghost of a former soldier that was in that bunker years ago. And they had the ability to push that metal door just to make you scared. I mean, it's like a 50-50 toss-up for me right now on what it would have been. But I'm just glad they got out of there and didn't face no real danger. And whatever was in that bunker did not follow them home.
During my late childhood, at around 15 to 17 years old, I've always had a fear of the night. I say late childhood as my fear of the night had started around that time because of something that nobody should ever have to go through in their life.
Hey, believe me, growing up, I was afraid of nighttime and darkness. But if we had a flashlight or we were on the porch and or we had our spotlight on, I mean, it cut the fear out completely. And I remember growing up, I used to have a nightlight on in my room, but now I don't mind it. I just sleep better without the light on. But anyway, let's just see what made this person afraid of night so bad.
I don't know how it happened, but somehow my fear stuck with me throughout my teenage years and so on. When I was younger, I used to think monsters would be under my bed, but as I got older, I feared of being groped or attacked. Yes, I may have gotten over it just a little bit by maturing, but the reality was that the fear was still there and showed no signs of stopping anytime soon. My parents had always told me that it was nonsense and that I had to grow out of it eventually. Anyways, on with the story. It was the summer of 2015, and I was around the age of 17 years old, and my family and I were driving up to Cape Cod for a week to rent a house on the beach to celebrate my birthday. Ever since I was young, I've always dreamt of visiting the Cape and Massachusetts in general. It was really the historical buildings, the sculptures, and main attractions that really had me hooked. What I loved about the Cape was the nice beaches and little shops it had. My mom had told me stories about how her and my dad would sit by the beach and catch little crabs when they were on their honeymoon. Anyways, we were struggling with money during this time, so I couldn't thank my parents enough for letting us go on this trip. We rented out a small one-bedroom beach house that had a clear view of the ocean from the outside deck. The beach was about 3 minutes in walking distance from the house, which meant I could go whenever I wanted. One day, my parents said that they were going to pick up some food at a small little local grocery store. I didn't want to go with them as I just wanted to relax and enjoy the Cape. It was dark out, around 9:30 p.m., and I was reading a book to keep myself occupied. The thing that I didn't like about this beach house was that the TV didn't have any good channels and that there were no movies. So the closest thing to entertainment was to read. You may just say to go on the phone, but I was part of the 1% of the people who didn't go on their phone. Anyway, as I'm reading in bed, I hear what sounds like light breathing or air coming from somewhere in the room.
First of all, I agree with this person just said earlier. Even though it's like a phase that you have to grow out of thinking that monsters are in your bed in your closet, the danger is always there because you never know if you might run into real people that turn out to be monsters. Let's just put it that way. But also, that would be kind of creepy if you're just laying in bed reading a book and all of a sudden you hear tapping at the window. That would make every muscle in my body jump.
Keep in mind that the air conditioner is off and that it's completely silent, so I knew I could hear something. However, as soon as I started to listen, the noises suddenly stopped. At that point, I figured my mind was playing tricks on me, as I do sometimes get a bit paranoid when it's dark out. Fast forward to about half an hour later, my parents still had not returned from the store, and I then began to get this strange feeling that I still can't explain, like I was being watched by someone. That's when I began to hear the breathing again. This time, I knew that I had heard it from somewhere. I was pretty sure that there was something wrong with the AC unit. Like I said, this was a small old beach house, so if there was something wrong with the AC, I wouldn't be surprised. I got out of bed and put my feet down on the floor, when I felt two cold hands grab my ankles and start pulling me under. I screamed and tried to fight back, but I was a 5-foot girl at the time that weighed about 100 pounds, so I couldn't fight them even if I tried.
Holy crap! I'd be wanting to know who is underneath her bed and how did he get under there without this person even knowing. That's creepy.
I tried to find whatever I could to make the intruder let go of me. I unfortunately didn't find any objects to defend myself with, so I used my nails to dig deep into his skin. That seemed to get him to let go of me, and then I took that chance to run out of the room and out onto the street. Outside were my parents, along with a police car. Turns out, a nearby neighbor witnessed a man sneaking in the house from the back door, carrying some sort of tool to break locks fast. The police said that it was a custom-made lock breaker to break any type of locks with ease. As far as I know, he's still in jail to this day. I can't thank the person enough for calling the police and potentially saving my life. Who knows what could have happened to me. After the trip, I never wanted to go back to the Cape again, as I sometimes look back on that incident. Unfortunately, there are so many people in the world that could just ruin things for you. All it takes is one person.
You got that right. I hate that this one person made you scared of going back to Cape Cod ever again. Even though that guy that tried to grab onto you is in jail now, still, you never know if somebody would try to replicate what he did. But thank God the neighbors saw that person was coming into their house and called the cops to get him over there quick before he grabbed her and either deleted her right there or kidnapped her. That is just scary and awful.
During my late 20s, I worked as a nurse at a hospital called Baptist Hospital in Florida. It was a really big hospital. You might as well just consider it as a big city. My duties and responsibilities at my job consisted of checking up on patients who were in need and to also serve them food. I had other things, but those were the major ones. One night, I ended my shift early as I had to help my dad with things around the house. He was around 70 at the time and couldn't really do everything on his own. I got into my car only to realize that it wouldn't start. I quietly swore to myself and kept trying to start it. It was an old car, so I wasn't that surprised. It was too late to call a tow truck or anything like that, and Uber wasn't around during the time of the story. The only option at this point was to hitchhike. I mean, what else was there to do?
Yeah, what else can you do? Your dad is like in his 70s and needs help, and you can't get to him quick enough because your car won't start. You might as well hitchhike, but I would have been calling AAA or 911 because hitchhiking is really dangerous. You might get picked up by a creepy person, which I'm guessing that's about to happen right here.
I would have just called a friend to come and pick me up, but seeing as it was late at night and that they were probably sleeping, I figured it wasn't such a great idea. I walked to the side of the road and stuck my thumb up, hoping someone would pick me up. Hitchhiking was a clear no-no in most people's books, but I thought of myself as smart and would take action if someone, quote, tried something. About 10 minutes later, I saw headlights coming my way, and the driver then came to a complete stop. He rolled down his window and said, "Hop in." Excitedly, I went into his car and gave him directions to my neighborhood. He replied with an okay and drove off. I don't know how it happened, but I for some reason fell asleep for a few minutes. I woke up to find that we were on a road that I wasn't familiar with. It looked more like a deserted type road with no cars. I asked, where are we going? There was no response from him. That's when I noticed he started to get a little bit sweaty. At this point, I knew that something wasn't right as the situation only got more sketchy. I then told him that this wasn't the right way to my house and that he needed to stop and turn around. He looked at me and hit the brakes somewhat aggressively and told me to just get out. I got out and he drove away and I immediately called the cops to drive me home, which they thankfully did come. Long story short, I arrived home to help him with my dad with whatever he needed to be done. I didn't tell him what had taken place as he would have gotten too worried and I don't like it when he feels like that. It would only add on to the stress. Till this day, I still don't know who that man was or what he wanted or where he was taking me. What I do know is that wherever he was taking me wasn't to my house.
That's why I would not even go to sleep in someone else's vehicle because that tells you right there they're not going to be friendly and taking you to your dad's house. He was probably going to take you somewhere to kidnap you. But since he noticed that you were asking a lot of questions, he didn't want to go through, so he just told you, get out. But I'll be telling the cops everything about that guy's truck and what he looks like, license plate numbers, so they can go question him because that's just wrong that he would try to kidnap somebody. But I'm just glad he's okay and didn't worry his dad because he's right. If your parents are like up in a certain age, they start to worry and might put more stress on their body. And you definitely don't want them having a heart attack over worrying about you. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more Mr. Haunted related content like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and I said that's a wrap. And have a nice day, y'all.